Um,
All
okay.
right.
So, but
Okay.
thank
All right.
you. First
Recording.
off, I wanted to thank you so much for agreeing to speak with us,
Of course.
everybody here on behalf of Fox 17 News in Nashville. I'd like to start off, if you can walk us through how you got these photos.
Sure. And I want to be, something that always kind of bothers me is you'll see these other hosts out there, or I should say other producers who take credit for work that they didn't do themselves. And I do a lot of work here on the show. And for a long time, everything undercover kind of had to come from me. That's why now we were able to build out this undercover unit. They did the legwork here. They did incredible legwork. And I really do want them to get the credit. Of course, they have to remain anonymous. So that's kind of difficult to do. I'm like, please give credit to Agent Q, but they did some incredible work. And the process that they have to go through is pretty rigorous, which for me makes my job easier in presenting it, because I'm confident, because I know if I come out here and they tell us this is what we have verified it, I know beyond any shadow of a doubt that it's the truth. They aim once, they aim right. So if you want me to kind of give you the verification timeline, we briefly touched on it on the show. I'll just refer to them as source one and source two, for the sake of keeping them anonymous. What happened is there was a source one, an anonymous source, that kind of sent a vague tip to our Proton mail. We have this available where people can send in tips. A journalist from our team here followed up, called them, and then some photos were sent from source one to our journalists. After a few phone calls, our people flew to Nashville to meet with this person, source number one, review the phone, the text thread. And this text thread also was that was shown to my journalist was from a source within the Nashville PD. So we'll call that source number two. And if anything is confusing, please let me know. I'm just trying to make sure that I protect their identity, especially considering what the mayor and people there in Nashville are saying. So then our journalists verified that the text thread was in fact from 2 days right after the shooting. And they reverse searched the phone number, authenticated that source number two was in fact on the scene of the crime. So now we had two different corroborating sources with pictures and phone numbers as well as dates.
Just to make sure I understand this correctly. So you guys got this tip, flew out to Nashville, saw it on the phone of someone who was sent this by somebody within the police department. And you guys were able to then go back, reverse search that phone number, and you were able to verify that that person was there the day of the Covenant massacre.
Yes. Okay. As well as verify some information that was given to us by source number two. Yeah. Okay. Very specific information where they said, verify XYZ. So.
Okay. And that answers my first question. Now, do you have more of the shooter's writings? Because you posted 3.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yesterday I said, well, we're not going to answer that, but we don't have all of it. I will say we certainly don't. When people are saying, oh, there's 20 something pages out there. If that's the case, we certainly don't have that. We have what was shown to us. And there's nothing that I have seen that suggests that what we've seen is incongruent with the totality of this manifesto. I'm hearing people say, oh, this doesn't show all of it. It shows it out of context. Look, if people release the remaining 20 pages, then great. Then we've done our job. No one would be discussing this at all. Nothing would have ever been released because the mayor and the MNPD did not want this getting out. Mr. Leatherford, who I believe that's his name, did his press conference yesterday, said that none of this should have ever seen the light of day. So that's not an investigation. That's someone's already made a decision. That's the conclusion. No one was going to be seeing this. So I do hope that all of it is released in its entirety. That's what I want. That's what we've wanted from the beginning. That's what the vast majority of people out there want. I believe it was a poll run by your own people there at Fox 17, and it was 95% of people approve of there being some information out there, the leak, quote unquote. And I would be willing to bet that all of those people would like to see everything in its entirety. If there's another page of them condemning the progressive left and extolling the virtues of Trump and America first, then I absolutely think that's relevant and we should see it. But I'd be willing to bet my bottom dollar that it doesn't exist.
Now, I want to clarify, you have these 3, but you do have more. Can't say how much more you have of these writings. Is that fair?
I didn't say that. No. All I'm saying is we certainly don't have all of it. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. Now, so you can't say whether or not you have more than just those 3 photos, because I was going to ask why you chose to post and leak those 3 if you have more.
We have shown what is relevant.
Okay.
Put it this way. I will stand by the statement that there is nothing being hidden from the public that would contradict what is in those 3 pages, period. Don't have all 20 pages. If there's page 19, 20, page 18, 17, or like I'm saying, this is someone who's saying, and I actually want to go out and kill black people because I'm secretly a white supremacist, right? This is the double cross. That's not something that I've seen. Everything that's relevant to people have seen.
Thank you. Now, you touched on this a little bit, but what would you say to folks who feel that this may not paint the whole picture of what the shooter's motivations were?
If they're making that, I would ask them, based on what are they making that statement? And if they're making that statement based on information that we don't have, I think we should have it. I mean, at the very least, right, the reason this is relevant is beyond the idea of it being a scoop or someone getting clicks. Look, this is relevant in charting a course forward, right? Establishing a motive or understanding if there was a motive, or certainly understanding the targets, which are very, very clear here, who the targets were and why they were. That affects policy going forward. You're talking about a mayor who the day after the shooting said, oh yeah, maybe a motive, but I don't know how interested we are in that. We want to move forward with public policy. What was that policy? Well, gun control. Right away, gun control. Would that have affected this at all? There are some lines out right now. Look, were there signs here where this maybe could have been preventable? And certainly, is there information that exists now that might assist us in preventing this in the future? I mean, we're teaching the idea of white privilege, right? We are teaching the idea of classism to our children. We're teaching in our school curriculum to check your privilege. That is effectively racism. And I've talked about this for many, many years on the show. When you have teachers, and there's more footage than you can watch in a lifetime, let alone read the actual materials that's being handed out to students. When you ask a young white person to quote unquote check their privilege, you are shaming them for something over which they have no control. And the left says that you absolutely shouldn't make jokes about immutable characteristics, but they want people to feel guilty and apologize for immutable characteristics. It's only natural that people, even if they are mentally deranged, mentally unstable, and by the way, you will hear no argument from me, I absolutely believe that Audrey/Aiden is a deeply mentally disturbed individual. But it's a perversion of something that children across this country, teenagers across this country, are being taught as a matter of curriculum, modern progressive ideology and gender theory.
Now, on the pictures, the images, did you or someone within your organization or someone you know pay for these pictures? Did you all pay for these in your possession?
No.
Okay.
No, we did not. I know that rumor's been circulating out there. And I will tell you this. If someone out there tried to sell some of this material, that certainly is not what took place here. But if someone out there is claiming that and it's not true, it would be an act of evil for someone to take the fall and be fired in the PD for something that they didn't do. I really hope that out there is not clickbait. It's news to me, has nothing to do with us. There's no payment nor discussion of money exchanging hands.
Right. And that was just something that, we saw that we wanted to clear up on our end and hear from.
No, and I appreciate it. I hope it is cleared up, because I certainly hope that no one is fired right now who is an active police officer for something they didn't do. Now, maybe they did try and do it with somebody else. Maybe there were other people who reached out and, asked for a source to try and, grease their palms a little bit. But I really hope that someone isn't just, what happens here. And this is really a shame. When we released this, we said, hey, look, you guys want to steal it? Go ahead, rip it, clip it, run it anywhere. Just don't lie about it. Because you can't really control what people do with the information, right? You'll have, now with deep fakes or AI, you can have people alter the text. And I've seen some people who put things on those pages that don't exist. That's also why we put our watermark on there, so that first off, there's attribution, but it makes it tougher to simply modify, to warp, and to fake. But we've seen people out there, at first some people tried to say, oh, we don't know if this is authentic. That kind of went away pretty quickly. No one's really refuting the authenticity of it. But then there were other people out there saying, and our sources were able to confirm when there could have been no way that they confirmed anything with our source. So sometimes people just jump on a bandwagon because, the topic starts trending. And we wanted to make sure that people had the truth. And if you want to steal it, you want to clip it, You want to put it in your podcast, on your show. You don't want to attribute us. That's fine. Just don't lie about it.
Right.
And I'm not saying you, by the way. I'm just saying in general to people out there. Yeah.
Right. We went through our way of authenticating what we saw. And I know a colleague of mine was in contact with you during that time as well. But and I know you touched on this a little bit before, but would you ever give up your source to law enforcement agencies or the city of Nashville? As we know, they said they're launching an investigation on this.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I would say they can go fornicate themselves with a wire brush. I hope I've crystallized that for you.
That definitely, yes. And I know you've said that you would go to jail for them. So that is it's fair to say that as well.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. No, look, this is when people talk about freedom of the press and anonymous sources, people get this wrong too a lot. They'll say this source needs to be kept anonymous for slander, right? They'll do that with some accusation of sexual harassment that cannot be verified at all and isn't a crime. For example, someone can come out and say, oh yeah, 30 years ago, this guy, this guy called me sugar tits, whatever it is. You see these stories come out. Okay. There's no way to verify that. The reason for having anonymous sources, first off, especially if there are crimes being committed or if there's information being concealed from the public actively that directly relates to their safety. And you keep a source anonymous, specifically in the instance where the material can be verified and authenticated, and this would create direct negative ramifications for that individual. This is kind of, if people have gone to journalism school, which I don't even know if that's still a thing anymore or what they teach, this would fit the parameters and the definition of, okay, this is a reason for a source to be anonymous. This is required for investigative journalism. It's not required to keep a source anonymous for someone to say, in page 6, that Donald Trump has a toupee. And we see that stuff all the time.
And there is still journalism schools out there, just so you know.
I know they are. They just aren't often teaching actual journalism.
Yeah. Now, the Covenant families is something we have to bring up. What would you say to the Covenant families and victims who are upset about this leak?
So I know that one man, it was, I believe, Leatherford issued the press conference and sort of named himself spokesperson of the families. I don't know that all of the families agree with him. I don't know that they all nominated him as spokesperson. What I would say to the families of anyone affected here is that it's a tragedy beyond anything that I could imagine. I honestly can't imagine anything worse than burying my child. So that's not lost on me. And when I say this, I know it falls on deaf ears because I can't imagine it. It's one of those things that until you're in that situation, I would imagine it's searing, blinding pain. That being said, this is something that directly deals with the matter of public safety. I also checked and also everyone here, who's on air as a father. If it was my children and I could know the motive and whether my children were targeted proactively, I would absolutely want to know. And we do know from Leatherford that none of the parents were even aware of or had seen anything out there. So again, we're dealing with this through third parties and hearsay. And I certainly would never want to cause anyone any pain. But this is the truth. And the truth was hidden from the public. And it's necessary for the public to know, as, by the way, expressed by other local news agencies. I mean, there are people who filed suit. I don't know if it was your local ABC affiliate or NBC affiliate who had filed a suit to try and get this manifesto. That was never going to happen. The National Association for the Police or National Police Association said that the public has a right to know, and this is very much in line with precedent. And I would ask ABC, NBC, CNN, CBS, Reddit, Facebook, all of these entities that allowed the Christchurch manifesto, which, by the way, was far less clear. It was what seemed to be a glorified troll job, or quoting directly the motives immediately within 5 hours of the shooting. When you're talking about, I believe it was Jacksonville, Buffalo, some of these are tough to recount exactly when or where. They have no problem with that. They got the information wrong as it related to Nashville on the outset. They got it wrong. They were so busy tripping over the proper pronouns, and then it disappeared. They tried to pivot to gun control and then it disappeared. And they said the public does not have a right to know. And this has happened before. This has happened before. Las Vegas, the Vegas shooting, the most deadly in modern American history. And people for the longest time were saying, wait, we get no information? That breeds, that breeds conspiracy theories. I'll give you another one because I deal with this so often in covering media, every day. And this is an entertainment show. I'm a comedian. I happen to have an investigative unit and sign the fronts of checks, and they do an incredible job. If I say, and this is not a trick question, just so you know, if I say Sutherland Springs to you, does that ring a bell? Because no one has said yes when I bring that up. And that's not a trick question. You probably, if you don't know, you probably shouldn't know. It's one of the deadliest shootings in American history. Sutherland Springs, Texas. I believe it was 26 people dead, another 22 wounded. People don't know about it. Now, that man, Stephen Williford, who stopped the shooter, he heard the man shoot up a church, and the man was getting into his car to go shoot up another church. Stephen Williford stopped him. You know why people don't know about that shooting? Because Stephen Williford is an NRA certified instructor, and he stopped him with an AR-15. And that man was on my show. And it was one of the most difficult interviews I had ever had to conduct because he requested to be on the show. And the last thing I ever want to do is be a Barbara Walters or an Oprah, right? Where, that perfect shot is getting the person to cry. But I wanted to give him the platform to recount what had happened that day. And he had not done it anywhere else. And he started sobbing on the show. You could see he was genuinely, we use this term all the time now, trauma, past trauma. He was reliving the trauma of being amidst a mass shooting and killing somebody, rightfully so, justifiably so. And I wanted to help him, but I didn't want to interject while he was crying. I kind of wanted to give him a lifeline because I could see he was struggling. This was the same day. And no one knows about it. And so the issue is not just the lies that people see, but it's the lies by omission. When it's not a convenient shooting for them, they move right past it. And if there is even a whiff of what they could present as white supremacy, well, by God, we got to do that so this administration can create a task force. We have a much clearer picture as to why this person in Nashville did what they did. We don't have a crystal clear picture, but certainly much more clear than we do with a lot of other shootings that were used to pivot to gun control and removing people's Second Amendment rights. And this took place in Tennessee amidst, there was a bill going on regarding, I believe it was drag shows. And the mayor decided to speak on that. And immediately, right, the next day, people were more concerned of there being backlash to the LGBTQ plus community. Now, let me be really clear before someone takes this out of context. No one should target members of the LGBTQ plus community, whatever the term is we're using now. AAIP, I've also heard plus, forgive me. No one should target them, especially not violently. That's not what we're talking about. But we can't be concerned with backlash, meaning offense, people being offended through the public knowing the truth and the motivations, or certainly at least the seed that was planted with this violent, evil person, because it's a seed that's being planted in every member of this generation if they attend public school or if they watch TikTok.
Now, and thank you for also sharing the story about the man that you interviewed. I know sometimes, like, even as a journalist, it's hard to sit down and have those tough conversations with people that have experienced things that we have not experienced. So I can only imagine how tough that was for you and for the person that was speaking. But I know it was, I can only assume, in my opinion, that it may have been therapeutic for him as well. I know sometimes it can be. Now, the other side of this, why did the source, the person who shared this with you, want this out? Are you able to share that with us, why they wanted this out there for?
I can tell you their exact words.
To see, but this is for the nation.
Yeah, I can tell you their exact words. Because it's the right thing to do. That's what they said. They said because it's the right thing to do. And they were willing to take a risk because they believed it was the right thing to do. And there are a lot of other people out there who feel the same way and are silenced, and they're afraid to speak out. And I think that's a big reason that we have people reach out to us. They can send their tips to our Proton mail address. I mean, you answered it earlier, because we here say we will keep you anonymous, right? If that's your request. And we're not handing it over to anybody. There are too many people out there who want to virtue signal and fancy themselves journalists. And then when the going gets tough, oh, mayor, here you go. Here's his name, his address, a list of his hobbies and places and events he attends regularly. We don't do that. So they believed it was the right thing to do, and they felt secure in sending it over to my team.
Now, because I've obviously spoken with both sides on this,
Sure.
what good do you think comes from leaking this? I mean, we've heard why people didn't want it out, but what good do you believe comes from this?
I haven't really heard, though, why they don't want it out. I've heard people say, I'm speaking on behalf of the families, that they're going to be like, is that what they're saying? Because the video footage of this person shooting up the school was played ad nauseum in the news, and they can still see it. So what is the reason that, for example, the police department and the mayor are saying it should never have seen the light of day? I've not really heard a cogent argument.
And now I can't answer that question. I can only refer you to our website and look and see what we've heard from the people that we've spoke with. I do know, because we've reported this, that obviously this happened. Multiple entities tried to get the writings. The police department did not release them. Lawsuits were filed. And then from that, I mean, here we are. So that's what I can tell you. And I know we were told right before the city attorney, right, metro government law, they kind of doubled down and said, hey, these lawsuits were filed. MNPD you cannot release this. They were getting ready to, I don't know what just happened.
Sorry. Can you see me and hear me now?
Yes, I can. I don't know what happened. But I know Metro Police, they were getting it ready to be released to the public. When those lawsuits were filed, the city came in and said, you can't do that. So that is one thing that I can tell you. And you heard from the families, people that represent the families, why they don't want it out. But what good do you think comes from releasing this?
Right. So I've heard from a person who claims to represent the families, your mayor, obviously, and I've seen a statement from the police which didn't match up with, I believe his name is Don Aaron, who I spoke with there at the police. So there's a lot of either misquotes or wires get crossed. I'm not attributing malicious intent, but a lot of inaccuracies out there. So I'm not quite clear on their argument, but I will say this: the reason this needed to be out there is because the only thing that corrects a lie is the truth. Truth needs to be out there, and this is the truth. And I hope there's more truth. I hope all of it is released, because we're consistently hand-fed either lies or small portions of the truth. And it would be one thing if throughout all of this, for example, the mayor and the police department had remained silent and just kept it private, but they didn't. They didn't. They said a narrative which was not true, and it was due to political pressures. According to the National Association of Police, they said that as well. They said the public has a right to know. We believe that the city stepped in due to political pressures, and this is not in line with precedent. It's not even in line with what the media has done in the past. It's a simple answer. The only way to correct a lie is the truth. And in this case, the truth can save lives and correct course moving forward.
Now, does this boil down to every single manifesto of every shooter in the United States has been released since this one? I mean, do you believe that's the case? That should be the case?
No, here's the thing. The truth is, I don't believe that any of them, right, should be released. I used to, if you go back to probably 2009, I used to have a policy of not commentating at all on mass shootings, because I would say, hey, look, there needs to be a time for mourning and grieving. That's just not an option anymore. You have politicians who have speeches that are clearly already prepared, and they just swap out the names of some victims of the city. And before the bodies even assume room temperature, before the bodies are cold, they are already on their pulpit pushing for something that would not have made a difference, but will strip Americans of their everyday rights. So there was a long time where I wouldn't commentate at all, other than say, man, I'm praying for those affected. That's not a luxury that we can afford anymore when one side decides to use the victims and stand on the graves. And by the way, yes, the media often, not everybody, a lot of the media who virtue signal will profit off of this while condemning others for correcting inaccuracies. So no, I also wish that no manifestos were out there, because I understand you don't want copycats. I understand that you don't want to inspire people, but I think a far greater risk now, considering that the progressive left will use manifestos whenever it is convenient for them. I think far more corrosive is people not knowing the truth and continuing down the path that they are on, which will lead to greater catastrophe as it relates to mental health outcomes, as it relates to people feeling isolated, as it relates to children being put in control of making decisions which their brains are not developed to make. This is an important conversation that people need to have, and half of the country has been told to shut up lest they be a bigot. Right? And that's what has happened here. That's why they don't want this being released.
Now,
I think it's relevant. I not only think it's relevant now, I think it's pivotal. Hey, if all sides said we're not going to discuss this anytime there's a mass casualty shooting, that would be one thing. But we both know that's not the case.
what was so special about this one, would you say?
That it was completely memory hold, and the media tried to move on from it as soon as possible once they saw what was actually taking place. The mayor realized, oh, not this one, kid. This is probably not the one to push for gun control, especially at a time when there was a bill there in Tennessee. If I'm not mistaken, you probably would know better than I would. I believe it was relating to age propriety, as far as drag shows, things like that, certain events. I don't necessarily know the ins and outs and how it compared to the Florida bill. I think theirs was more so about like establishments that served liquor, but it really was about, drag queen shows, about the gender bender ideology being presented to children or to a captive audience. It was something that then they tried to play hot potato with and pass it along. It's the same thing that happened. It's very similar to the Vegas shooting, right? This was everywhere, and it just kind of went away really quickly. The difference is here, there was enough information out there that people could suspect, oh, I think I know why this one went away quickly, because this was someone who was yes, mentally unstable. You're not hearing me argue that, but someone who had bought in and subscribed to the modern gender ideology, gender theory, and targeted crackers, white privilege, and hated people who they viewed to be people of wealth, people of privilege. That's relevant. That's a system of targeting. So it went away really quickly. And a lot of people felt as though, 95% of your viewers felt as though they weren't given the true story and they had no answers. And that's not a good place to be as the American public.
Now, you leaked this, right? How can you argue to not release it?
What do you mean? You mean if I'm playing devil's advocate?
Yes.
Okay, I thought you were saying, because I've not argued that the rest of it shouldn't be released. I think it should all be released. That's been a request from day one. If I were to argue from their side, again, I don't really see a logical thread that would work, that would hold water. I'd probably plea to emotions and maybe use the appeal to authority fallacy and say, well, because the mayor says or the city says that this should not be released, right? That ends up you get to pass the buck. That would probably be the case that I would present, because I can't see a case logically as to how this is damaging, and the truth should be kept under wraps. It would be a really hard case for someone to make. And it'd be a hard legal case for someone to make too.
Now, I promise this is this is my last question, and you can add whatever you'd like. Now,
Oh, that's fine. I appreciate it.
of course. Now, we noticed that you mentioned it earlier, our poll, and you all retweeted it. Now, what is your impression of our viewers on whether the writings should be released? Overwhelmingly, they said yes.
Yeah, I'm 0 parts surprised. None. Because, people throw around the term gaslighting a lot. It's kind of the term du jour. That and narcissist is what people use, because everyone's sort of an armchair psychologist, right? He's a gaslighting narcissist. But this really is gaslighting that you see from most of the legacy media, and certainly big tech, where they just want you to believe that you must be crazy. And of course, a big technique of theirs is to make you feel isolated. So they want the 95%. Let's call it 90, right? You guys have a 95% poll. At one point it was 87. Let's call it 90. They want the 90% to feel like they're actually the 10%. that if you want the truth as it relates to this shooting in the manifesto, you're actually in the minority because you must be, insert whatever it is here, bigot, racist, homophobe, misogynist, transphobe, whatever term du jour is most necessary. So the media, right, the megaphone that is used, the mayor, perhaps the police chief, I don't know if he issued an official statement. I saw that there was something on social media. This Leatherman out there, they get the megaphone. And so it's easy for a lot of people to think, oh my gosh, I must be in the small minority. And if that happens enough, then you begin to think, or at least decent people, if they see themselves as the minority in every major decision or as it relates to their opinion on political issues, decent people, right, they'll self-reflect and they'll say, maybe I'm wrong. And then maybe you can convince them that they are wrong. When the reality is they make up the vast majority of the American public. It's the media who does not represent them. Whenever you go straight to people, I mean, this happens a lot, by the way, with Black Americans. You know, I do a segment called Black and White and the Gray Issues, where I go to an area of town where it's largely Black people and we just talk. And I can tell you, having done this countless times now, that I've never seen a group of people who are more overly represented in the media without having any actual representation than Black Americans. Meaning you have plenty of people with darker skin in the media, but the Van Joneses, the Joy Reids, they do not represent the views of Black Americans if you go into their communities and speak with them. These are not people who are on board with the idea of LGBTQAIP+ and hate America. Most of them are deeply patriotic, right? Both the women and the men tend to believe in traditional gender roles, and they believe that it's a flawed country, but they believe that we have more in common than we have that separates us. And you see that all the time. You would believe that the vast majority, right, for years, you would believe that the majority, or certainly a plurality of Black Americans, would be on board with Black Lives Matter. When you speak with people, it's not the truth. Just like if you were to believe the media, you would believe that 95% of people in Nashville or the United States think that it's reprehensible for the truth of this manifesto to get out. That's not the truth. That's what the megaphone is saying, but it's the opposite of reality.
Now, thank you again so much for taking the time to speak with us. I don't know if you want me to call you Steven Crowder or Mr. Crowder, but we appreciate—
Don't call me Mr. Crowder. That'd be weird.
Well, Steven, thank you so much for speaking with us at Fox 17 News. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to do this. Any last minute thoughts? Anything else you think people should know about this leak?
No, I think I've covered it, and I've covered it in the program quite a bit. I appreciate you conducting this, in a way that's professional. And I do think, by the way, I really do think that you are trying to actually do journalism, the art, the science, the craft of journalism justice. And I would ask you, my last word would be to you personally, keep your eyes open. Keep your eyes open, because I can't tell you how many people I've seen who are young, wide-eyed, want to do the right thing when they go into journalism. And boy, does it beat them down when they realize that they do not have the autonomy that they thought they did, that the people who sign the fronts of those checks don't actually want them rooting out dishonesty and corruption. Don't let that defeat you when you hit that hurdle, because you will. I think that it's a sad state of affairs when we look at ABC, NBC, CBS, MSNBC, CNBC, even Fox News at this point. And now we have YouTube, Google, Facebook, Instagram, Messenger, acting as though the 95% doesn't even exist. And they're memory holding all of it. And they chew their own journalists up and spit them out. And I think you're doing a good job. From what I know of you, I've looked you up here before this interview, and I just ask that you don't let the bastards get you down, because eventually they're going to come for you. They're going to try.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And I can speak on behalf of myself. I love the job that I do. I think everybody here at Fox 17 News, we all do a great job. We're fair. We're honest. That's our goal here, is to give people information, and we work very hard every single day. So again, thank you so much. Feel free to reach out anytime. I really appreciate it. And maybe we'll talk again soon sometime.
All right. Thank you, Payton. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Be well.